welcome for another Sunday. We are going to be together to reflect upon the gospel. And it's a great happiness for me to have you guys, everyone here today. And today, as you may know that I have been doing in my past talks, today is kind of a round table, right? We are going to go through this text that you guys have. And this is from the book Good News. Okay, it's a wonderful book that tells us a story about the dialogues that Jesus had with his disciples in private, and which is not on the Bible or any other religion's book, but Humberto de Campos, who is the spirit that wrote this book or dictated this book. He had access to the library and the spiritual realm, and he collected those third stories, third meetings that Jesus had with his disciples, and he explained to his disciples with more details his teachings. So it's a great happiness to be able to reflect upon those meetings, because we can learn along with the disciples. We can learn from them what Jesus means with his teachings. Okay, so before we start, I would like just to read our text of harmonization, and then we're going to do our initial prayer, and then we're going to start our reflections today. Okay. So today we're going to get the text 136 from The Way, the Truth, and the Life, which is a book written by Emmanuel, psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier. So the text 136 is entitled Earthly and Heavenly Things. I have spoken to you of earthly things, yet you do not believe me. How will you believe if I speak to you of heavenly things? Jesus, John chapter 3, verse 12. Individuals who study the interchange with the spirit world often complain about lack of information from communicating spirits with regard to the activities they are involved in there. Why are discarnates not more explicit about the kind of life they have been called to? What are their cities, homes, and daily relationships like? By what means are they organized hierarchy? Oops, this is hard. Hierarchy. How can I say this? Hierarchy. Perfect. Thank you. Do their governments follow earthly models? Others ask why scientists who have been liberated from the physical realm do not return to their former centers of research and accomplishments to make known ways to cure so-called incurable diseases, or to review new inventions that would accelerate world progress. These are hasty arguments of human laziness. If, in a methodical course of introduction to more elevated tasks, communicating spirits have dealt almost exclusively with matters concerning incarnates, but have not yet been paid attention to, what would happen if they put their serious obligations aside and began providing information before incarnates were ready for it? People need to understand that God does indeed provide help for such matters, but each spirit has to fashion its own glory. As for the way it relates to incarnates, the great mission of the spirit world does not entail bringing them sensational and extemporaneous knowledge, but teaching them how to read the divine signs that earthly life contains within itself, thus lighting their way of progress towards the higher realms of the spirit world. So let's start our reflections today with our hearts and our mind connected with our guardian angels, firstly, and also with our Jesus, our Master, that had taught so many truths, so many examples that he gave us how to follow the truth and the love towards God, how we become better people by giving orientations to Nicodemus. He's also giving us his orientations, the clarifications that help us to have a better understanding about what we are doing here, and be grateful for this great opportunity to grow, to learn, complying with the laws of love, reincarnation, mercy, progress, and so many others. Divine Master, help us to understand, to read deeply the divine laws that are written in our conscience. Help us to have a better understanding about our mission here on earth. Thank you for this opportunity, and be with us here and ever. So be it. Okay, everyone has a all right. So today we are going to reflect upon the chapter 14 from this book, Good News, the lesson to Nicodemus, you must be born again. That we can see this teaching from Jesus in the book of John, chapter 3, verse 1 and 17. Okay, as we already said, we are going to reflect upon this chapter today because we are studying this book, but it's not in a way that is sequencing. It's randomly pick it up, the chapter that we're going to study every Sunday, right? So, without further ado, let's start our reflections. Before we start reading these texts that you have in your hands, and I would ask you please to help me by reading the paragraphs, okay? So we can stop, listen to me a little bit, and you can hear your own voices. Before we start, let's see the entire verse where Jesus provided us with this teaching. He says, "Very truly I tell you, no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they are born of water and the Spirit. Flesh gives birth to flesh, but the Spirit gives birth to spirit. You should not be surprised at my saying, you must be born again." So you can have a better understanding about this chapter or about this verse when Jesus said flesh gives birth to flesh and water and the Spirit in the Gospel according to Spiritism, the chapter 4, 8 and 8. I'm not going to read this here because it's a long text, and will take lots of our time. So I highly recommend you go through the Gospel according to Spiritism a little, and try to have a better understanding what Jesus means with that. However, we can understand that this Jesus is talking about the Spirit comes from the Spirit. The body is just a body that parents provide to children, but the Spirit incarnating that body comes from God. Right? Comes from the Spirit realm. So we are co-creators with God. God is the creator of all spirits, and we collaborate with each other when we are parents. So it's good to see there too the mission that we have as parents as well. Right? So I highly recommend, I'm not going to read this again here, but we are going to have a better understanding about this dialogue that Jesus had with Nicodemus and his disciples afterwards. After he talked to Nicodemus, you're going to give more explanations about what he thought to his disciples. So, we are clearly talking here about the law of reincarnation, right? Is this clear for everyone? All right, so is this, do you know this is a universal law? So everyone in the world, in the universe actually, is depends on the evolution process depends on this law, right? Sometimes we have not a right understanding about this law because sometimes we think this is a punishment law. This is a law that punishes the ones that have done something wrong in the past lives. We are going to try to have to build a new understanding about this law that is so much connected with the law of mercy and law of God for all of us. So the law of reincarnation, or the reincarnation, and I would like just to bring a little bit of science to our talk today because our Spiritism is based on the three parameters or three bases: science, philosophy, and religion. And the science thing that we can see here, right, Tila, in this book. This book is fabulous because it brings the science side of reincarnation and life after death. It's written by a Brazilian professor and along with another two, The Science of Life After Death. And here, he says that except for Russia and China, at least 60% of population of the 10 most populous countries in the world believe in life after death. And why this is important to know? Because Spiritism doesn't bring reincarnation, like it's not something that is new. It's not exclusive from Spiritism, saying that reincarnation is a law. Well, Jesus has told us that. And most of the countries, most of the population in the world believe in reincarnations. Many other religions, they have this belief. And why this is important? This is important because it has a huge positive impact on mental health, less anxiety, fewer suicidal thoughts, as well as greater well-being, life satisfaction, and belief in an equitable world. Why do you think that? This is the conclusion that the scientists got to. Why believe in reincarnation gives us such great benefits?
That we have a chance in life, that we have a chance in life.
That's right.
Yeah, when you know you have a chance, you have hope. When you know you have hope, then you're positive.
Hope. This is great.
And also good to say that. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say what you used to say, because you may have other chances in life, you make a mistake, and if you know you have another life, you have more ways to correct that.
Perfect.
And I think it helps us like to have a sense that we don't need to be perfect like in this life. We are always learning, and we can be more compassionate to ourselves and others, I guess.
Wonderful.
And I also think that it gives us a broader picture, and then you don't think about those atrocities in life or things that you cannot explain, as if life is not just or not fair. And then you think, yes, it is. It's just me because I am still very limited. I just don't understand it quite well yet.
Yeah, and I also think it takes away that anxiety of YOLO, you only live once, I have to cram everything, I have to have all the fun, I have to have all the experiences, so, you know, hold your horses, calm down.
Yes, you're gonna live again.
For me, the main benefit is it gives a reasonable explanation and things make sense. Because at least for me, if things don't make sense, there's this hole, like, what is the sense of life then? But when we read about reincarnation, every pieces they fit together. There's this calmness.
Perfect.
And I think it also helps us to see the world like in a more fair way. So for example, we hear like we are perfect, we have all the limbs and everything, and some people, they don't have any limbs, for example. They don't have legs, they don't have arms. And why would, I don't know, like, why would we be like luckier and be like perfect and others don't if we have only one life?
Like,
It would be very unfair, I guess. Like,
if God is good, how can we explain
yes, exactly.
Perfect, guys. I guess we don't need to talk anything anymore. Everybody knows everything.
See you next week.
that?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have to say, maybe because you know that they have more opportunity in the last life, in the last life they have mistakes, and they in the new life they improve spiritually. You know,
Improvement. Evolution. Thank you. Perfect.
I was gonna say too, like I heard from a person saying, like a non-believer, like an atheist person, saying, well, but what happens to all my conscious if there's nothing? So that goes beyond just reincarnation, but like reincarnation bring more explanations too. But like what, it's almost like it doesn't make sense, like we leave and then it's all done, but then where does my conscious go? So I think when we believe reincarnation, like it makes sense, like I go on, like whatever happens to me, like I'm part of my past and my present and then for my future, so there's more to come than just this one, not even talking about the materialistic things, but the conscious, the soul, like what happens to like my thoughts, like whatever I create, it's just lost then, so I guess it brings purpose too, right?
Thank you. Thank you all of us. We're going to talk about all of this. We're going to talk about individuality. We're going to talk about hope. We're going to talk about learning process. We're going to talk about justice. We're going to talk about improvement. We're going to talk about all that you were mentioning here. That's great. Thanks so much. So let's start our readings. Who would like to read, please, the first paragraph? Thank you.
All of the Pharisees in the temple were very suspicious of the new teachings of Jesus because of their own extreme attachment to the ancient text. The Master, however, never missed the opportunity to share the light on the most difficult situations with the light of truth, which his divine word brought to the world's thinking. A large segment of teachers of the law could not hide their consternation, since despite their efforts to best Jesus, his benevolent actions continued to benefit the afflicted and the suffering. The new principles were a matter for discussion in the great temple in Jerusalem and in the public squares and synagogues. The humblest and the poorest show the Messiah and the misery of God.
Actually saw. I'm sorry, it's a mistake there.
Oh,
Where it does not show, it's saw.
okay. Saw the Messiah as a misery of God, whose hands have abundantly distributed peace and comfort. Important personalities feared him.
Thank you, Nick. So what we can understand about this first paragraph, let's think about it a little bit. So here we can see that the Pharisees, they feared Jesus because of their attachment to the ancient texts. Which type of attachments do we have that we don't want to see the truth sometimes? So they were fearing Jesus, but the poorest, the humblest, they were welcoming Jesus. Why, do you think?
Because it brought change.
Brought change.
Truth.
Idea of change.
New ideas.
It has every new thing. It's always welcomed with some kind of resistance.
Resistant,
by
yes.
By whoever is in control or is in power.
Mhm.
But those who don't have any control or any power, I believe that they're much more open to their new ideas.
Perfect. Why? Then we can understand why the important personalities, they were fearing Jesus. Why they were fearing Jesus? Because they were fearing lose control,
They,
power,
And change.
yeah.
yes, in the changes,
And to be exposed.
to be exposed.
And I think it also underscores this word attachment. I don't think you can overemphasize it, because the poorest and the humblest are the most likely also to not have attachments. Why? Because they don't have things to be attached to. It's in practical terms. Whereas the people whom are successful and well positioned in their society, and it's ironic because I had a similar conversation with someone just recently, although it was put in a different way. It's like the system that we have now, people who really benefit from that system like it.
Yes.
And they're like, yeah, let's keep it going this way. But I'm like, well, but what about all these problems? They're like, well, yeah, but those are ultimately the gist of it. Those are other people's problems, right?
Yes.
whereas like if we're living from a sense of comfort in this arrangement, then it makes every sense to want to continue it. And these Pharisees benefited greatly from that situation.
Exactly.
And so to be attached to it and to not want to, if you have to change all those beliefs and perspectives, that might ultimately have to change your, benefits that you're drawing from them. And so it almost, in a way, there's an eloquence to Jesus's approach, because not only did he go to the people that needed it the most, but he also went to the people whom are most likely to just embrace it most naturally because they had the least reason to refuse it.
Wonderful. Can you please read the next chapter?
Of course, it would be my pleasure.
You set yourself up.
I guess so. Okay, so the next paragraph. Moreover, the prophet was never seduced by the great promises made to him regarding his material future. He never tempered his word of truth with the self-indulgent conventions of the times. Despised being magnanimous, thank you, towards others about their shortcomings. He fought evil with such intense zeal that he quickly became the target of hostility for all who had unconfessable intentions.
Is this come across with what you just said?
I think there's a certain tie, yes, definitely. Yes.
Exactly. So Jesus was very tough regarding the imperfections, but not to the people that committed the imperfections, right? So God always, he doesn't want the die of the sinners, but he wants the die of the sins. Means that he was magnanimous towards others about their faults, about their imperfections, but he fought evil with such intense zeal. Means that he was very hard on the selfish, on pride, on the I don't want to change my life. I am in this comfort zone. I don't want to move, and I don't care about others. I don't care if the purists don't have the same benefits that I have. I am getting benefits from the position that I am now. Why do I need to change? I am a privileged son. So if I have that, it's because God gave to me. So why do I need to be concerned about others? So that's the way that they think. That's the ignorance. That's the attachment. So maybe we should think about what are the attachments that I'm having right now in my life that it's restraining me to change my life, to follow Jesus' pathways. Right? And on the Spirit's book, we will see this question, I thought it was very interesting, is the question 800, where Kardec is going to ask, should we be concerned that Spiritism may fail to triumph over the negligence of human beings and their attachment to material things? And the answer was, this question demonstrates a very superficial knowledge of human nature. If one could believe that any cause could transform them by mere charm or enchantment, like that. Ideas change gradually, depending on the individual, and several generations are needed for the complete eradication of old habits. Therefore, the transformation of humankind can be carried out only over the course of time, slowly and step by step, which with each new generation part of the veil evaporates, and Spiritism will dissolve it entirely. In the meantime, even if it only cures human beings of a single fault, this is a step forward. This would be a tremendous accomplishment because this first step would make the rest much easier. So, we change, but we change slowly. We are not going to change overnight. We're not going to be better. And those priests that at that time, they would not change just because Jesus was there telling them to change, because they were in a very comfortable zone, like Attila said. They were feeling very well why they would change. But sooner or later, the law of cause and consequence, so cause and effect, will come to visit us if we don't want to move. The divine laws will push us a little bit further, because it's by law, like it's the law. We are invited to evolve. We are determined to reach the light. So even though the human being changes just a little bit, it's enough for this existence. It's a huge accomplishment sometimes that will help us to become better when we have our view in the future. Right? If you see only the present time, we think, okay, this is nothing. Yes, this is good. This is enough for the next life. The next life is another knowledge that we learn, another virtue that we are practicing. And this is the process. God is not in a rush. God is not in a rush.
We are.
Sometimes. But we should not, because if he is not,
I know.
why should we? Right?
It's so hard, right, to be patient with yourself. Like, I keep forgetting, which is why every week I need to come here. Remind myself. Those 5 days, they take so much out of me that I forget what I learned. I come here, I remember, then I go back the next week.
There you go. Keep coming. We do that. We do the same.
Well, human beings learn from repetition.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Who would like to read the next paragraph, please?
I can read it.
Thank you, Mariana.
This was especially the case in Jerusalem, which its cosmopolitanism, Russian realistic portrait of the world. And it was where the large ideas ignited the most passionate discussions. There were ordinary people who surrendered to the liberal apologia of Jesus' doctrine, slaves who believed in him with all the warmth of their grateful hearts, priests who fought him openly, conventionalists who could not stand him, wealthy individuals who protested his teachings.
Can you read the next one, please, Ariana? Thank you.
Nevertheless, despite the natural dissensions that precede the definitive establishment of new ideas, some minds accompanied the Messiah with a sincere interest in his high principles. Among those was Nicodemus, a Pharisee recognized for his kindly heart and his gift of intelligence. Thus, one night after much pondering, he came to Jesus in private, seduced by the magnanimity of his actions and the greatness of his salvific thank you, doctrine. The Messiah was in the company of only 2 of his disciples, and he received his visit with his usual kindness.
Thank you so much. Let's stop a little bit here and try to reflect upon these 2 paragraphs here. So in the first one, we can see that Jesus, he had not a very easy task, right? Because there were ones that believed in him with all the warmth of their hearts, but also the ones that fought him openly, the priests of the synagogues, the rich people, the personalities of that time, some that protested his teachings. He had to face so many challenges when he were there because what Eduardo said, he was bringing a new idea. Changes. And for those that are opened, like Attila said, that don't have too much attachments, or they are passing through hard situation, hard time, so they are more open to learn. Like Jesus said, I came to those that are sick. So when we are in a situation that we are feeling tired or sick, or we cannot see any other way to get better, normally we are open to hear. We are more. We have our hearts open to, okay, what do I need to learn here? What do I need to do in order to change my life? What I'm doing wrong? So we humble our pride. We try to, okay, I don't know everything. I was going through a pathway that was not good. What I'm doing here? What I'm doing wrong? So Jesus was there for those that are willing to learn. Not for those that are closed. I don't need to learn anything. I'm well the way that I am. So that's the reason that Jesus said, I came for the sick, for the people that are sick, not for those that are healthy. Because the health ones, normally when everything is all right in our lives, sometimes we just don't. We forgot to pray. We are not thinking about us as spirits. We are just moving with our lives, our routine, without thinking very much, without taking time to take care of our spiritual, like we are spiritual being. Yes, like we think that we are just, sometimes we think that we have a spirit and we are the body, but it's the contrary. We are spirits that have a body. So sometimes we give too much attention to our bodies. Not that it's not wrong. We need to pay attention to our bodies because it's an instrument that provides us the opportunity to be here. But us as spirits, we are more important. What we're doing. So this is something that we are invited to think about a little bit. Can somebody read the next?
I was just thinking about the passage of Paul in the desert when he's assaulted, robbed, and because he didn't have anything to lose, that didn't mean much for him, right? Like it takes your clothes, or it takes like even the writings or the papers that it was taken.
Oh, yeah.
He had another one. He had a copy. So if you are not if you do not prioritize the embodied or the materialistic experience, but rather invest in your spiritual or in the learning, these stays, you have nothing to lose. So everything else, it goes, it's transitory, but if you just shift gears and you think about the eternal learning, that nobody can take away from you. So this is like when we were seeing the Pharisees and the poor. The Pharisees had status, power, they were in control, so you have a lot to lose. But the poor ones, they didn't. So you're more open to what else is out there for you, and you're more open to the divine laws, and they change.
That's right. Thank you. Yeah, this is fantastic. Could you please let us know from which book did you get these teachings from?
The Paulo Esteban showed
Paul and Stephen.
Yeah, it shows that he was. I don't remember. He was with Nicodemus. I don't remember. Barnabas. Okay, he was with.
So Paul and Stephen. Thank you. It's a book that tells us the story about Paul's life. How he was when he was a doctor of the law, and then how his transformation happened during all the course of his life. It's a fantastic book that everyone should read at least once in your lives. We can learn so much from Paul. So, highly recommended. Thank you so much for bringing this up. Can anyone please read the next paragraph? Thanks so much.
After the customary greetings, Nicodemus expressed his thirst for understanding. Having pondered the matter deeply, he respectfully addressed him. Master, we have no doubts that you have come from God, for only with the light of divine assistance could you have achieved what you have done, manifesting the sign of heaven in your hands. I have spent my entire life interpreting the law, but I wanted to hear what I must do in order to know the kingdom of God. The Master neared benevolently and explained. Should I continue?
Yes, please.
Suspense. First of all, Nicodemus, spending your life interpreting the law is not enough. Rather than reasoning about the letter of the text, you must grasp their meaning. But truly, I must tell you that no one can know the kingdom of heaven without having been born again.
Thank you. Let's stop a little bit there. So here, what we can understand about this question from Nicodemus to Jesus. So he was a doctor of the law, right? He used to study the law a lot. And he said to Jesus, the teachers of the teachers. Yeah, some people that follow the chosen here, they know Nicodemus, right?
So that scene in the Chosen is so beautiful.
Yes. So everyone should. I didn't see it, but I'll put it. I'll see it.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're not saying that people should watch, but that scene is really beautiful.
Yeah. So Nicodemus, he went to see Jesus in the middle of the night, so he didn't want to be seen by others in private. Right? Because he was afraid, he was fearing what other priests would say if he was seen with Jesus. And then he asks Jesus, well, I studied the law like in my entire life, but I can see that you come from God because what you were doing, nobody else can do. So he was like curious, what I must do in order to know the kingdom of God? Like what I'm doing that I cannot do what you are doing. So Jesus then looked at him because he understood what's the question of Nicodemus was between the lines. He was saying, why you have this privilege from God? So God gave this to you. Why I cannot? I'm older than you. I studied a lot. So I don't know what I'm doing because I cannot do what you do. Why God gave you this power that didn't give to me? So the Nicodemus he didn't understand that because he didn't have the knowledge of the multiple lives. Then Jesus explained to him, well, this is not a privilege, Nicodemus. You must be born again to know the kingdom of God. By saying, you are just an apprentice. You need to come several times. You need to learn several times all the scriptures, all these texts, in order to really understand it. Because so far, you are just reading. You are not interpreting. You are not taking out the spirit from the letter.
Yeah, and like just a historical observation, at the time they mixed the scriptures with the laws of Moses. And the laws of Moses are not the divine laws. They are laws that Moses set up to try and rein in the wild people at the time. But they are not divine laws. But for most of the Jewish people at the time, mainly the Pharisees, they observed sometimes even more the Mosaic laws than the divine laws.
Yes.
So
exactly.
that's something else that is important to
Thank
remember. Yeah, like the ritualistic, the repeated prayers, you have to do this in a certain order or it's wrong. So all of those things were Mosaic laws, not divine laws, but they followed it to the letter.
Exactly. They used to just observe the rituals, right? They was just concerned about the rituals and the dogmas, not about the meaning, the law. So in the book Renuncia, Emmanuel will give us these great teachings from Alcione, which is one of the characters from the book, where she says, she was in a gospel at home, and then she said to his family, the message of Christ needs to be known, meditated upon, felt, and lived. Which means that it's not only read, we are invited to read, but we are must invited to meditate upon, reflect upon. And this is what we're doing here. This is what we're trying to do here. Reflect upon, to understand the meaning, the profound meaning, because this is what Nicodemus was not doing. He was reading, he was performing all the rituals and dogmas that Renata said, but he was not understanding, comprehending, feeling with his heart. And this is something that I love this saying when Honorio, it's the spirit Honorio, he is going to say to us that knowledge enlightened the feeling, and the feeling sweetened the knowledge. Conhecimento, I'm going to repeat in Portuguese, so for those that it's hard to understand English. O conhecimento ilumina o sentir, e o sentir dulcifica o conhecimento. It's wonderful when we try to grasp the meaning. What Jesus repeats every time, grasp the meaning, comprehend the meaning. When something when somebody is filled up with information, he only knows. When somebody gets the meaning, reflect upon of that information, that brings purpose. When reincarnation, law of reincarnation, law of love, when we study those laws and that gives meaning to our lives, that gives purpose to us.
And I was thinking here that I think another way of being born again I think we kind of can do that like in this life as well. When we are open to change some beliefs that we had, like open to like new knowledge, new teachings, for example. I think it is a way of like being born again, because you need to change something inside yourself, right? To practice what Jesus said or
Yes.
the Spirit said. So I don't know, like I get it is about reincarnation for sure, but I was just wondering, is that something we can also do like in this life? I don't know.
Every day in the morning, when you open your eyes, you have a new life. You have a new 24 hours or 12 hours at least ahead of you, waiting for you to perform differently from you have performed yesterday. You have a new opportunity.
If you think about Paul, right, Sonia, he was doing the change within the same life.
Yes.
After he saw Jesus. So he didn't need another life to do differently and to start all over again. He just changed right away when he saw Jesus, and he was a completely different person moving forward. So.
And that's interesting, because I was having this conversation like this week about being born again, because sometimes in life things happen and they change you so drastically that you really feel like you're born again.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there's even a Christian music, I think it's Catholic or Christian, that it's called Born Again, and it's about this feeling that you have a new life inside your new life. It's like you reincarnate
Yes.
in the same life.
Yeah, well, one of Chico's most famous quotes, even though you cannot go back and redo the beginning, you can always start today and make a new ending.
That's true.
And actually, for anybody who immigrated,
I was thinking about that.
Anybody who immigrated at a certain age that is old enough to remember how it was in Brazil, we know it is to be born again. It's a reincarnation within.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, yeah.
And you go through a period of mourning, like you really feel like
Yep.
something died.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go through all the stages of grief.
Yeah.
More than once.
But I think, like, if you think about other Christian-based religions, it's like the baptism is the symbol of being reborn, and this is like, yeah, we are talking about
it was a
ritualism.
misinterpretation of
Yeah.
body comes from the body, water comes from water.
Absolutely, but then that's it. It's just like symbolically, it represents you accept Jesus' law and you are starting a new life. And I think it has a lot of values when you see people that committed sin or like were living at flaw, for example. And I'm just getting the like stereotypical situations, but for example, with inmates and stuff, you see a lot of conversion, right? Like those people that almost like Paul, getting the same incarnation but changing and saying that was a new me and I accept Jesus and I have an opportunity to rewrite my ending. So I think in a way that's very poetic or very beautiful.
So regarding the baptism, I've been going to like a Mormon church for like a few months now. I met those missionaries and they, of course, like they want me to get baptized, right? They always want to. And like, we always like meet up once or twice a week, and always like the main question that I have is about baptism. And I remember one day when one of them explained to me like baptism for Mormons, of course, like I don't know about other like Christian-based religions. It's more about like cleaning your sins, but it's not just about the baptism. It's what's gonna happen after that, because in the church there are like a lot of people that were baptized, but they don't go to church, they don't take like their life as they should, let's say that. Like they don't try to improve, they don't do the good for other people. And because I was like kind of worried, like, okay, so you want me to get baptized because you think that I'm gonna like be clean from my sins and that's it, I'm good, I don't need to worry about it anymore, like, you know, you know, yeah, exactly, yeah, I'm a saint. And they're like, no, it's not just about that. So it's just like that kind of relationship that you're gonna have with God, like the closer relation, you know, with God. But it's not like about the baptism itself. It's like it's a ritual, and like I think that every religion has a ritual, but But yeah, that's the experience that I had with the Mormons. And it's been great to like know more about like other Christian-based religions and how the baptism itself is different for each Christian-based religion.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks so much for bringing this point of view. I didn't know that too.
Yeah.
Good to know.
And this idea of change, I think, only is further expressed in all these stories, but also in just the range that we were talking about, bringing Paul into the discussion, which I think is so apropos, because a few slides ago you were discussing, which is absolutely true, and I think it needs to be the starting point. One lesson in an entire life is enough. Like, that is already success, and that's the gentleness and the patience and the kindness that we need to start from. That being said, I love Paul's story because Paul is like for me, the archetype of the possible. It is literally like, now what happens if you learn all the lessons in one life? That is what happens, you know? And because, you know, because there's a tendency to take Jesus and put him, you know, far away, that he is so far past that we can't possibly connect with that. But Paul, lots of people could say he was a terrible person before he found Jesus, you know? He was like doing the worst things possible, you know?
He was human.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but as far as like, if people have a tendency to rank themselves, well, I wouldn't go around killing anybody or you know, justifying like completely like persecuting Christians with death because I believed so strongly in my point of view. Yet he changed, and then it was embraced by Jesus, was embraced by the lesson of God, to the point where then he was able to do such exceptional things in the course of one material life. And so that's the beauty, I find, that just demonstrates the power that comes from embracing, well, which probably is going to come out if I can imagine where this story is going, from the ultimate tenet of Jesus, which is embracing love. And the other tie-in that I just think of that comes up with that is actually a quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu, which he, in a book that he wrote about 10 years ago, this is the gist of it, it's much more eloquent the way he put it, but is that love is much more demanding than law. And I feel like it's that, in maybe a certain sense, is a tie-in to so much of what Jesus was saying, is that you can take the law that was given through Moses and through the scripture, and that is an exceptional starting point. But then when you embrace that feeling, as you were saying, that underlying connection that brings us meaning and purpose, and you tie it in with the law, it takes it so much farther than where it was at that initial stage of just knowledge.
Thank you so much. Wow.
Excuse me, just I want to say, you know, that Bible says that mercy of God are new every morning. For us, every morning we have new mercies.
Thank you, yes, for sure. The mercy of God comes to us every new morning. Every new morning. Someone has the time, please?
3 minutes to.
3 minutes? Why did you ask?
Well, this is part 1 of 2 parts.
Yeah, so wow, thank you so much, Attila, because this is a great segue for the next part that we're going to see.
Okay.
Because so far we just saw how was the time when Jesus came, how things were about knowledge, about how to interpreting the law, and the law of Moses and not the law of love that you mentioned. And Jesus is going to give these teachings. In the next part, to the disciples, he's going to extend the explanation, because we'll see that Nicodemus, he left a little bit confused. He didn't understand. But we are going to understand. And with this beautiful explanation Attila gave to us, that's how we are going to start next part. I need to see how we're going to do that, because I really would like to keep reflecting upon this. Probably I'm going to ask Victor to take the next slide, so we can keep studying that, so we don't lose the
Momentum.
The momentum. Perfect.
I just want to mention one thing. Like that was a good exercise to, as an analogy for all the internal changes that we do, like being born again. But it's we'll see on the next one. But Jesus was he was talking about reincarnation, right?
Yes.
At that point.
Yes.
So, that how he became who he was,
Yes.
right? And it's an invitation for of us to not be in a hurry. We'll all be there at some point, right? And many of us will have more or less inclinations to achieve that goal of finding happiness, which is our ultimate goal, right? And being closer to that.
That's why we see in the question 115.
Can I just comment
Of
one little
course.
thing very quick based on what Attila was saying? I think that gives us hope overall when we see that as a group, mankind is really evolving. Like looking a few hundreds or thousands years ago, we couldn't tame instinct. And then most of us, like at some level, we are not instinct-based or not only instinct-based. Then we went to the knowledge phase as a mankind, and we are about knowing the laws, right?
Yes.
And I think like overall, the next step or what we are doing or working towards is the feeling piece. So going from instinct to knowledge and to emotions to feeling, and it's absolutely way harder to love than to understand the laws. And we are still trying to understand, but somehow also working in the next phase. And that gives me hope too, that we're getting there.
Thank you.
Somehow.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And the pathway between the knowledge, what we feel here, like we know here, to our hearts, which is the feeling, is the most long way. But we need, like, we are invited to work step by step. We are here to accomplish just one virtue. In each of us, we have this accomplished in our minds, in our hearts, in our conscience. We brought with us one purpose, and we can have a better understanding about this in our next meeting. That's going to be next Sunday. I'll make sure that we have this next Sunday. And I would like that if you could keep the copies and bring with you, would be great, so we can keep reflecting upon this.
This is like a season.
Exactly.
Wait for the next
The next episode,
The
right?
gospel, the good news series. This is the show, The Chosen, so the good news.
If I can just, one other thought that you brought up, and it ties in so well, is that I always, the idea of the prodigal son came up for me, because oftentimes every time I've read that parable, I read it from the perspective of the father, and the father welcoming the son back in, God welcoming all his children back. But then recently somebody expressed to me, I read something from Eckhart Tolle actually, who changed my perspective, because he looked at it from the perspective of the son that leaves, wastes all his money, and then has nothing left to do but go back to the parent. But he as well learned to appreciate his father so much more through that experience. And so even that individual, the humbleness with which he went back, showed an openness and sensitivity to the father that he never appreciated when he was there with him, living under his house and eating all his food and just probably behaving the same way as he did when he took his earnings. And so it's almost like this experience, it's like the difficulties, the going from knowledge and then having to tie it into the feeling. It makes us build that love for God so much more. And what's a greater gift than a father that can give to even block himself from being connected so as to help the son. And anyway, so
bottom line, kick your kids out.
Touche. All fair. In Buddhism? Oh, in Buddhism. Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Story where, what happens. He leaves his wife and his child.
Yeah.
He goes, but his wife welcomes him back because she was very hurt.
Yeah.
But she still welcomes him back and says, okay, this is your son, meet your son, because he wanted to meet his son after so many years of meditation.
Yeah.
And this is like, she was so welcoming. So it's the roles switched, That's the wife, but very similar kind of story.
Theme.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. I didn't know that.
Wonderful. You can bring better, like more about this to us
Yeah,
next
sure.
Sunday. Great. All right, so let's finish for now. But we're gonna have more next Sunday. Hopefully you guys can. Yeah, please do.
Please do.
Please do. Be here with us. All right. So let's once again close our eyes and connect our hearts with our guardian angels, and also with the spirituality that is among us right now, helping us with all these reflections, providing us with their thoughts, and also explaining, clarifying better Jesus' teachings. Let's be thankful, grateful for this opportunity that God is giving to us to learn, to relearn, to reborn, to have a better understanding about the love, mercy, reincarnation. Through this week, may God, may Jesus be with us, with each of us, helping us with our struggles in life, and remind us about our mission, our role here, the purpose of our existence, the meaning of our existence. May Jesus be with each of us, bring His light and His peace to our hearts, now and ever. So be it. Before we go to our classes, I would like just to give some reminders. It's like, this reminds me that the priest in the church.
The community announcements or something.
Yeah, the announcements for the community. Well, so we have, guys, this delicious corn, a cake corn that Renata kindly provided to us. If you would like to get one, it's there outside. So feel free to grab a cup of tea or coffee and have this delicious cake in your way home. It's just $4 each piece. And we have here this beautiful basket of so many delicious things. Like we have